In the 4th year of our marriage, Ethan Cole and I reached a marital agreement. He gave his love to other women and gave me his money. For the next few years, I happily waited to collect the money hoping he would die. But in the end, after having his fill of fun, he regretted it. One night didn't he expect Ethan to come here today, he pushed the door open reeking of alcohol, glanced at me, then staggered towards the bathroom. As I was leaving with the folded clothes in my arms, I heard the sound of him falling in the bathroom. I ignored it, neatly arranging the slippers I'd taken off and placing them back in the shoe cabinet. Yet just as I was about to close the door, I heard his muffled groan of pain. I remembered that in a week's time would be the day Ethan was supposed to transfer money to me. So I placed the clothes by the door again and went back to check on Ethan. He lay motionless on the floor with no visible wounds on his body and no traces of blood on the ground. Unsure where he was injured, I crouched down and called his name. His voice was so soft I couldn't make out what he was saying. So I leaned in closer and heard him call out, "Ellie, Ellie." That us, when I realized he was looking for a woman named Ellie. I rummaged through his pockets to find his phone, then asked him, "Ethan, what's your phone password? I'll call that person named Ellie over for you." After waiting a long time without getting a response, I looked down and realized Ethan had already fallen asleep. I struggled to drag him to the bedroom bed, then grabbed my bag again, intending to leave. Just then someone knocked on the door. When I opened it, I saw a pair of eyes swollen from crying. The face was unfamiliar. After all these years of not paying attention to Ethan, I had no idea how many romantic partners he'd cycled through. I suppose it's common knowledge by now that Ethan and I have been living separate lives under the same roof. That us, why, she asked me in that hoarse, tear-choked voice. "Is Ethan there? I want to see him." I tentatively asked, "Are you Allie?" She nodded, then asked me, "Has Ethan mentioned me to you?" I stepped out the door with my bag and urged her to hurry inside. "Go on, Ethan's looking for you." After going downstairs, I received a call from my friend Chloe. She excitedly told me over the phone that our little seaside inn had done quite well this month in terms of income. After reaching the money agreement with Ethan, I found myself accumulating more and more wealth. Investing in this hotel wasn't a carefully considered decision. During that period, Ethan was pursuing love affairs with wild abandon, and we kept running into each other in all sorts of places. To avoid the awkwardness, I took Chloe on vacation instead. When I traveled to the 3rd city, that tranquil Pacific coastal town was so beautiful that I began to entertain the idea of staying there. So I bought a house there, and then started thinking about living there in the future. Coincidentally, there was a suitable property available for rent. Chloe and I ended up co-founding this bed and breakfast together. I once told her that once everything here stabilized, I would consider leaving Ethan. So she asked me over the phone, "Eleanor, when are you moving in to live together?" "Not yet," I replied. She pressed further, "Everything is settled now. What else are you waiting for?" "I'm waiting until I've extracted enough money to feel these years with Ethan can be balanced by cash. Or until the money Ethan gives me feels sufficient to withstand any risk." This was also the reason Ethan and I quarreled for so long, until he finally offered me financial compensation in exchange for my non-interference in his outside life. The only justification I could convince myself with was this: when love and wealth cannot coexist, I would rather be the one who possesses wealth. Love is fleeting, lost too quickly, while money remains mine forever. 3. I was driving to the yoga studio when Ethan's call came in. Over the years since leaving Ethan, I've cultivated many hobbies. Those times when Ethan took his new girlfriend to parties, when he brought her to the busiest shopping centers downtown, when he visited our former home. To avoid them, I drove to various places to attend classes. By the time this busy routine became my daily life, I realized I hadn't heard any news about Ethan for a long time. Forgetting had become such a simple thing. He asked me over the phone, "Eleanor Vance, when are you coming back?" Truthfully, I hadn't returned to that home for many years. This time I only went back because the competition I was participating in required a dress with a particularly full skirt. I searched through stores downtown for ages, but couldn't find what I wanted. Then on my way home from work, I suddenly remembered buying one many years ago. So I drove here in a hurry to get them, only to run into Ethan returning drunk just as I finished organizing everything. As far as I knew, Ethan didn't live in this house anymore either. Who would have thought my spur-of-the-moment decision would coincide with Ethan's sudden return? I told him, "Ethan, I don't live there anymore. All these years, Ethan and I have severed every connection between us except for money. I don't know where he lives, and he doesn't know where I live either." Just as I was about to hang up the phone, I suddenly heard Ethan say something. "I didn't invite her over, and she didn't stay long. You can keep smashing this place if you want." For it took me a long time to remember what Ethan was talking about. Now I can't even recall how many years ago that was. I only remember it was a night after overtime work, dragging my exhausted body home, only to see a woman wearing my slippers carrying a glass of water heading towards the bedroom. She glanced back at me when she heard the door open. She wasn't the least bit afraid of my presence, casually telling me, "Ethan is sick. I'm here to take care of him." Ethan and I were only sleeping in separate rooms at that point, and he had promised me he wouldn't bring those women home. In the end, he broke every rule one by one. The woman in the house coaxed Ethan softly to drink water and take his medicine. I didn't even glance at him, walking straight to the storage room to fetch a hammer. With loud clanging, I began smashing everything in this house. Amidst the woman's screams, Ethan dragged his sickly body out to confront me. "Eleanor Vance, what are you making a fuss about?" I said, nothing, simply reaching out to Ethan for money. "Give me the money. I want to buy a new apartment. I absolutely want to live in a house that others have occupied." While signing the purchase contract, I received a call from Ethan. "Eleanor, I've had the house renovated for you." I signed the papers without hesitation. "It's yours now. I want to be coming back." Ethan on the other end was furious with humiliation. Whoever wants to live in that house can have it. I'm not going back either. As for me, I felt nothing toward the newly renovated house. Even with the exact replication of the original decor, I couldn't find any trace of the past. When we first moved into this house, Ethan and I were so excited we stayed up all night just to hang our wedding photos. After realizing they weren't properly aligned, we pulled out the nails, leaving behind a small hole. When I returned today, that little hole was nowhere to be found. The long scratch I left on the floor when moving the coffee table while tidying up has now completely disappeared. The glass cabinet I smashed in my rage has also been replaced with a new one. Ethan went to great lengths to restore the shattered house to its former glory, yet seeing it today only made it feel so unfamiliar, as if I'd stepped into someone else's home. I didn't even feel like sitting down for a moment, so when that woman arrived, I felt I should leave immediately. So, as not to interfere with her taking care of Ethan, as for smashing up this house again, I'm far too busy. Simply no time for that. 6. When Ethan called again, I was in the middle of a yoga class. I muted the call and signaled the instructor to continue. By the time the yoga session ended, I checked my phone while packing up. Over a dozen missed calls and one message from Ethan. Eleanor, did you take the engagement gift I gave you? It wasn't until I sat in the car that I realized I couldn't remember what gift he'd given me when we got engaged. The incident he mentioned was from so long ago that I'd erased every trace of our past from my memory. When he called again, Ethan's question greeted me the moment I answered. Eleanor, where are you? I'm coming to find you. I cursed at him. Are you out of your mind? If you're so bored, go chase new girls, or send me money, don't come accusing me. Then he mentioned this dress I'd just taken over the phone. Back then I loved dancing most of all, and Ethan had given me this dress at our engagement ceremony. The marriage proposal vows were spoken with utmost romance. He swore solemnly to me. Eleanor, I'll make you dance joyfully in the palm of my hand forever. In the end, it was he who whispered sweet nothings, and also he who said he couldn't give me love. I glanced at the dress placed on the passenger seat. I must have worn it many times. The fabric bore the marks of repeated washing. I just couldn't see the past Ethan had told me about, no matter how hard I tried. I don't remember any of it. Everything you're saying, Ethan, I've completely forgotten. 7. With the dance competition approaching, I went straight to the dance studio after work, even eating dinner in the car. Getting a good ranking had become my sole obsession lately. My dance partner hasn't arrived yet. I've changed into my dress and shoes, repeatedly practicing the competition piece in the hall. The skirt flutters and dances with my movements. Several times I feel the scene is familiar, yet I can't remember when I might have danced like this before. As for the engagement Ethan mentioned, I can only recall fragmented bits and pieces up to now. I even considered going through photo albums to verify whether what Ethan said was true or not. As for the past, my photo album remains completely blank. Drenched in sweat from dancing, I paused the music to catch my breath. My dance instructor came over holding a bottle of coconut water. She handed it to me and said, you must have a new admirer. Someone watched you for a long time outside, then bought several crates of coconut water for the studio. I didn't drink it, but tore open the packaging on the bottle to make a mark. I asked her in a joking tone, did you get a good look? What does he look like? I'm a bit of a looks person. She put on a thoughtful expression before telling me very seriously. That adjective might not be quite appropriate. He looks exactly like your late husband. During these years of estrangement from Ethan, he completely vanished from my world. I've heard too many inquiries about Ethan. I'm not good at elaborating on the past at length, nor do I wish to discuss our current situation with others. So a simple he recently passed away dismisses all inquiries, and in return they offer me a word of comfort. Please accept my condolences. By now the fact that I'm a widow has become deeply ingrained in all my teachers' minds. I set the coconut water aside, smoothing my skirt as I prepared to continue dancing. Then you'll have to help me get rid of him. Men like that don't live long, and I want to have him. 8. On the day of the competition, I was surprised to see Ethan in the audience. He was turning his head to chat with the person on his left while the seat on his right remained empty, likely occupied by some new woman who enjoyed watching the dance. When he glanced in my direction, my dance partner was calling me to help backstage. So I hurried back without exchanging glances with Ethan. Otherwise, I would have tried to read his eyes to see if he was here to make trouble for me. He always loved doing such things, showing up at mutual gatherings with his latest woman by his side. He introduced me as Mrs. Cole, while the woman in his arms was declared his sweetheart. Love and status, he kept them meticulously separate. After being hurt once or twice, numbness sets in, and the pain no longer pierces. The competition between masters was intense. My dance partner and I poured our hearts into the performance, then stepped off stage hand in hand to await the results. After this competition, I'll need to devote more energy to other matters. Exhausted, I sat on the bench during the break, while my dance partner massaged my shoulders and told me, finally, it's over. This time we really must take a good long rest. The announced ranking was higher than we'd expected, and we walked hand in hand onto the stage to receive our award. He leaned in close and whispered to me, thanks to you, I won another award. I also smiled and thanked him. I owe it to you too. In the parking lot, when I mentioned I was going on a trip, my dance partner came over and gave me a hug. Have a good rest and enjoy your journey. Then I heard Ethan's voice, take your hands off her. I sighed inwardly at this unfortunate encounter. Ethan and I had parked our cars in the same spot. While glancing around searching for Ethan's new companion, he grabbed my wrist. Eleanor Vance, I'm not dead yet, he said, and here you are cozying up to someone else. I retorted sharply, Ethan Cole, I'm not dead yet. You've already been intimate with countless women. At that very moment my phone alarm went off. I took it out and showed it to Ethan. Displayed on the screen were the bold words, "Time to collect payment." When it comes to demanding money, I never hesitate. The moment the alarm sounds, I immediately call Ethan. Transfer the money to me, and then repeatedly checking the bank account balance. My dance partner froze, then stammered as he asked me, "Eleanor, is this your husband?" I smiled awkwardly. I keep wishing for his death, but he's too stubborn to die. 9. I became the only one in our circle to win awards consecutively. While driving with my trophy, deliberately avoiding Ethan's pursuit, I received their call. "Eleanor, come over here, so we can celebrate for you." So I steered my car toward the place my friend mentioned. Ethan's car continued to chase relentlessly behind me. When we were in the parking lot, he offered to drive me home, but I refused. That car, which had carried so many women, felt utterly filthy to me. As I pushed the door open, holding the trophy, a shower of petals rained down from above. Everyone was celebrating my professional success. I had once seen petals fluttering in the air like that. Ethan had pursued a woman with all his heart. That day, Chloe and I had agreed to meet at the newly opened shopping mall. When I parked my car and walked over, all I heard was Chloe's hoarse, desperate questioning. "Ethan Cole, where have you put Eleanor?" When I rushed over in a hurry, Chloe had just snatched that enormous bouquet from the woman's hands. Then she smashed it violently against the two of them. "A shameless pair like you. How dare you declare your love so openly?" Scattered rose petals fell everywhere at my feet, on my shoulders, even into my open palms. I looked at Ethan through the crowd. He never once glanced my way, wholly absorbed in comforting his startled new girlfriend. In this game of love, I lost utterly and completely. 10. Ethan arrived shortly after, drawing a collective gasp from everyone. No one understood why he appeared here after our falling out. There was an unspoken agreement to never let Ethan and me appear at the same event. So someone stepped forward to try to drive Ethan out. "Today is to celebrate Eleanor's award. Be sensible. If you want to show off your new girlfriend, pick a time when she's not around." Ethan spoke 2 sentences in a very calm tone. "There is no new girlfriend. I also want to celebrate her," the man said disbelievingly, then walked out to see if there were any unfamiliar faces outside. It suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't seen the woman Ethan brought along, the one who loved watching dances from start to finish. Ethan repeatedly promised to sit quietly and unobtrusively, insisting on staying at the party. The trophy was treated as a rare curiosity, passed around for many to examine closely. Over the years, I've won numerous awards, big and small, becoming what they call the perfect woman in their eyes. Someone teased me with a laugh, "Eleanor, it's rather unfair that you're still stuck with the title of Mrs. Cole." So I turned my gaze to Ethan, sitting silent in the corner. "Then let us find a time to get divorced," she said, but just like at the very beginning, he still refused to agree to the separation. But this time he didn't say to me in your dreams. Instead, he just stared at me in silence. 11. The party was nothing more than bringing up how they saw me dancing on live stream, praising my beautiful and precise dance moves. I drank tea in place of alcohol with them for a long time. In the end, amidst the toasts and clinking glasses, Ethan was the first to get drunk. He suddenly ran over, wrapped his arms around my neck, and affectionately nuzzled my face while calling my name. "Ellie, Ellie." A shiver ran down my spine, and I screamed frantically, trying to pry his hands away. He was so strong when drunk that even his friends struggled to pull him off me. He stared at me, slurring Eleanor's name. I remembered the woman with red, tearful eyes that day. So I yelled to the friends, "Does anyone have the number of that Eleanor girl Ethan's seeing? Call her and tell her to come quick. Say Ethan's asking for her." It seems Ethan had introduced this woman to them before, and someone actually managed to get Eleanor's contact information. Ethan was pinned in the corner of the sofa by them, waiting for Eleanor's arrival. I rushed to the restroom to fix my smudged makeup and disheveled clothes. I kept wiping my neck and face, the parts Ethan had touched with wet wipes, over and over again, until the area I rubbed became red and swollen. I finally gave up. My disgust for Ethan reached its peak at this moment. I suddenly remembered the divorce my friend had vaguely mentioned earlier. At this moment, the desire to completely sever ties with Ethan reached its zenith. No amount of money could make me continue this relationship any longer. When I returned to the room, I saw Ellie trying to approach Ethan. The closer that woman got, the more Ethan acted out. He went berserk, screaming for her to get away, while the woman only cried harder. "Ethan, take a good look, it's me, Ellie." Ethan kept denying it. "No, you can't be Ellie." So I stood by the doorway and told Ethan to call the other Ellies over instead of making a fool of himself here for everyone to laugh at. Hearing my voice, Ethan immediately perked up, pushing past his friend's attempts to stop him as he stood before me. He stared at my swollen neck and flushed face, asking what happened. "You're so red." "Ellie, did someone bully you? I'll avenge you." I sidestepped Ethan's attempt to grab me, then stood there laughing at him. "You've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not Ellie." He began to weep bitterly. "You're Ellie, don't you remember how I always used to call you that, my Eleanor?" I decided to end this party right there, so I walked over to the table to pick up the trophy and leave. Ethan chased after me and asked, "Ellie, where are you going?" I sighed and told him, "Ethan, I've always been one to hold grudges. I only remember how you've hurt me all these years, not the good things you did for me in the past." 12. Ethan, and I didn't become like this overnight either. The first sign I noticed of Ethan's infidelity was a tiny cluster of false eyelashes caught in his own lashes. That day he came home saying he was exhausted, then lay on the couch with his eyes closed. After finishing my work, I thought I'd demassage Ethan's temples for him. Then I noticed that cluster of false eyelashes. When I plucked them off with my fingers, Ethan even yelped in pain. I'm accustomed to eyelash extensions, and Ethan has no habit of wearing false lashes either. So I pinched Ethan hard, then held the cluster of lashes before his eyes as he frowned in questioning. Ethan, which woman do these belong to? That was the first time Ethan made such a mistake. Before I could even think of making excuses, my instinct was to apologize first. At that time I asked for a divorce, but he refused to agree. That very night I moved to the guest bedroom and started sleeping separately from Ethan. In the end, after all the back and forth, Ethan and I became the most familiar strangers. I never moved back into the master bedroom during this Cold War. Ethan found yet another woman who caught his interest. On the night Chloe ruined his confession, Ethan stormed home and vented his anger at me. He was truly taken with this new woman, condemning me with every word for sabotaging his carefully laid plans. I brought up divorce again, but Ethan still refused to agree. I asked him, if you don't love me anymore, why keep clinging on? But he told me, I have no interest in getting married again. Eleanor, I can't give you love, but I can give you money. That night I tossed and turned, endlessly calculating what I might gain through a divorce lawsuit. After all the calculations, none of the options proved as advantageous as Ethan's proposed arrangement. So I agreed to Ethan's terms and then treated him like an ATM. No matter how many women he loves, as long as he sends me money on time, I won't make a scene with him anymore. All these years my feelings for Ethan have been less than what I do feel for a stray dog on the street. He suddenly brought up the distant my Eleanor era, but I couldn't even remember which year that was anymore. 13. The next day, I flew to the coastal city where the hotel was located. Chloe had everything ready early and was waiting for me. When she saw me, she complained about the last-minute message I sent her the night before, saying it had made her rush around preparing all my favorite dishes. Dean was thriving under her management. I sat at the front desk watching her busily registering the newly arrived guests. After finishing his work, he came over and sat beside me again. The redness and swelling on her neck still hadn't subsided. She touched it, saw I didn't react, and then asked me, "What happened to this? It doesn't look like an injury." I smiled and took a bite of the apple. It was contaminated, so I disinfected it thoroughly. Then she brought up the old topic again. "Eleanor, when are you planning to move in? The inn is doing well, you can come live here now." This time I didn't refuse, but told her I'll come over after dealing with matters on my end. I've been preparing to open a dance studio in the city. I've been preparing for this competition for a long time, and completing it has been the most important thing in my life recently. Now the focus of life has shifted back to opening a dance studio. Moving here to live is just around the corner, she said, excitedly hugging me. Wonderful, you won't have to see Ethan anymore. So she also thought those days of avoiding Ethan had been truly difficult. 14. When I returned, I saw the same brand of coconut water again in the dance studio. She pointed to the person standing outside and told me, "Eleanor, when I tried to send him away, he told me he was your husband." My years-long act of playing the grieving widow was shattered by Ethan's sudden reappearance. She frowned at me, then sighed and said, "He has been coming here frequently lately. You should have a proper talk with him." I put down what I was holding and went out to meet him. It must have been years since we last sat face to face. I felt uncomfortable all over, so I urged Ethan impatiently, "Spit it out, then leave quickly." He asked me about spreading rumors that he was already dead. I admitted frankly that I had done such a thing. I live alone, work diligently, and cultivate various hobbies after work. The dog at home can stay up late watching movies with me and eat meals together occasionally. I attend friends' gatherings too. Ethan, I've been living a single life, but legally my marital status remains married. I couldn't understand why I was living this way until it dawned on me I'm probably widowed, that's why. I realized I was wishing for Ethan's death when his money transfer was delayed one time. I waited until exactly midnight on the appointed day, but no bank transfer notification ever came. For the first time, I eagerly dialed Ethan's number. I thought perhaps Ethan had met with some accident and died at this very moment. After 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings, Ethan's call was answered. Then I heard a strange woman's voice saying Ethan had drunk too much. What truly disappointing and terrible news. I told her to pass the phone to the drunken Ethan. The moment Ethan uttered a groggy hello, I began frantically pressing numbers on my calculator. Then I told Ethan, "Don't forget to include the penalty fee when you transfer the money." He said nothing, hung up the phone directly, and soon the money arrived. Since then, I often used whether the money arrived or not to guess if Ethan had met with misfortune and died that month. Until now, my hopes have been dashed every time. What a pity. I never expected Ethan to suddenly bring up the idea of changing our current situation. He told me so earnestly, "Eleanor, I've ended all my outside relationships. How about we live properly together?" His change came too quickly, and suddenly, I couldn't fathom the reason. So, I asked him, "Ethan, don't you want to give me money anymore?" Then he replied with great generosity, "I'll give you even more money, and my love too." I suddenly remembered that day, when Ethan held me, and I felt waves of disgust crawling over my skin. He was so filthy that I didn't even want to have any unnecessary contact with him. I laughed at him, this ISNTA garbage dump. What do I want with your love? I couldn't care less. As I got up to leave, it suddenly occurred to me when Ethan first confessed his mistake to me, he said the thrill of novelty had overpowered his moral compass. So after all these twists and turns over the years, Ethan wandered among flowers, yet still thought of turning back. But it was only because he had played enough and then began to regret. 15. I sent Ethan the divorce papers by express mail the very next day. He called me after receiving the package. His tone was full of skepticism. "Eleanor, don't you want the money anymore?" It seems that over the years, by taking the money and quietly disappearing from his world, I've given him the illusion that I love money. If he could use money to make me stop loving him, then he could also use money to make me love him again. But he never understood that my compromise back then was only because he promised that as long as I didn't disturb him, he wouldn't disturb me either. I just thought about how I'd be living alone from now on, and since Ethan was willing to give me money to spend, why not take it? After that he lived his happy life, and I lived mine. If Ethan hadn't staged this sudden repentant scene with me, I might have been able to maintain this undisturbed life forever. Hoping Ethan would die before me has remained my expectation to this day. During the days when Ethan showed no concern for me, I accumulated a considerable fortune with the money he provided. In the past, I didn't feel wronged living this life of apparent harmony, but actual discord. Now that Ethan has brought up his old flame again, I feel an urgent desire to be single for the first time. Leaving Ethan has become the top priority. At 16, I learned about Ethan's extravagant reconciliation ceremony through a friend's tip-off. Ethan's sudden turn of events caught all of us by surprise. So when he called, he couldn't help but burst into laughter after uttering just one word. After several failed attempts to contain himself, he finally surrendered to unrestrained laughter. I asked him, "What good fortune has come your way you're laughing like this?" His voice still carried a hint of amusement as he asked me, "Eleanor, do you know Ethan regrets it?" Having said that, he burst into laughter again. He mentioned how Ethan had recently gotten drunk and rambled on to them about our past. Everyone wore expressions of eager anticipation watching as he recounted the story of me filing for divorce. He could never understand why I couldn't be bought with money. They all knew about me buying property and starting a business in a foreign land. Yet no one ever mentioned it to Ethan, or perhaps they simply never had the chance to bring it up. At the height of Ethan's arrogance, he particularly loathed appearing at the same events as me, because his new girlfriend would feel awkward upon seeing me. The more I resisted, the more Ethan insisted on putting on affectionate performances in front of me. The most satisfying aspect of this financially driven marriage agreement was how quickly I detached myself emotionally. Once I stopped loving Ethan, everything he did seemed like a circus monkey performing tricks for my entertainment. Eventually, our friends tacitly agreed never to let Ethan and me appear at the same gatherings. This time he called again to tip me off. "Ethan is busy decorating the house right now, saying he wants to reconcile with you tomorrow. Eleanor, don't answer his calls, and don't go." Just like when Ethan turned into a jerk, they advised me the same way. Eleanor, stop loving him. Loving his money would be better than loving the man himself. So I grew to love Ethan less and money more and more. 17 the next day, as events were even broadcast to me in real time by them. Ethan did call me several times, but I never answered. Then came the calls from those friends he sent, which I also ignored. Yet they could still walk into the house and tell Ethan playing their own little drama. "I've already called Ellie, she should be here soon." In the waiting moments, I saw several photos he had sent me. The setup was indeed lavish. Ethan was always like this. When he fancied someone, he'd spare no effort to win their favor. Ethan never truly understood the woman I became. I had long outgrown the age where a pretty dress could buy my affection. The coconut water left on the table, I never drank it again afterwards. The oversized floral arrangement in the center didn't symbolize love to me, but rather an affair. This superficially grand, yet thoughtless reconciliation ceremony couldn't even score a single point in my book. I replied, "Bad review." The response came back quickly from the other side. "I think so too, absolutely terrible." Not a single person said it was good. But within 10 minutes someone came to prove us wrong. They deliberately twisted the Ellie that Ethan had mentioned. They called over that same Ellie from last time. The moment she pushed the door open and entered, the crowd fell into a hushed silence, watching the spectacle. Ethan's stunned disbelief and Ellie's tears of joy. Before Ethan could do anything, Ellie spoke up, "I do." Only to be met with Ethan's icy retort, "Why is it always you?" Someone from the crowd spoke up to explain, "Ethan, didn't you say you loved Ellie? So I called her over for you." Throughout Ethan's attempts at reconciliation, he kept dwelling on the past. In his memories, he and Eleanor were deeply in love, yet everyone only remembers him flaunting this Ellie in public displays of affection. Thus, no one truly wanted to lend him a helping hand. Instead, they devised this scheme to fish in troubled waters. The farce culminated in their final rupture. During the breakup, they exchanged the cruelest words, each stabbing the other with verbal daggers. Back when they were in love, they called this immoral affair breaking taboos. Now Ethan accuses her, saying, "What kind of decent person would fall for a married man?" Ellie fires back, asking what kind of upstanding man would want a mistress while having a wife. By now, Ellie has also figured out exactly who Ethan wants to reconcile with. So she mocked Ethan, that bastard, for wanting to turn back the clock. She screamed herself hoarse, cursing Ethan to never get what he desired. In response, Ethan hurled the bouquet at her with force, telling her to shut up. Amidst the flurry of scattered flowers, I witnessed the rise and fall of Ethan's affections. My friend didn't continue with what happened next, only telling me, "Take advantage of your good mood and get some proper sleep." I had no intention of getting overly entangled with Ethan, so I quickly packed up everything here, planning to move to that city ahead of schedule. I heard from friends that Ethan had been asking them for my new address. All my friends gave the same response, "Don't know, not clear, no idea." "Ethan, didn't you say you didn't want to see Eleanor? Why she's not coming here anymore?" Ethan went to my former company looking for me, only to learn I'd already resigned. When he went to that dance studio, the instructor could no longer give Ethan a friendly look. What kind of man could he be that a woman would rather bear the stigma of widowhood than speak his name? The coconut waters that had been set aside were brought up by the teacher to return to Ethan. But the bag tore, and the coconut waters spilled everywhere. The more the teacher picked them up, the angrier she became, until she started hurling them one by one at Ethan with all her might. I knew what she was angry about once I sprained my ankle while dancing, sweating from the pain, and had to go to the hospital alone. She insisted on accompanying me, blaming me for being stubborn when I said I could manage alone. It was on this trip to the hospital that she brought up Ethan with me. Eleanor, since he is already dead, you should consider finding someone else at least to take care of you during times like this. In the end, the one who should be died, didn't he? But even if I found Ethan, he wouldn't have cared for me anyway. 19 I saw Ethan the night before I left. Chloe specifically asked for sandwiches from a deli in town, wanting me to bring them to her tomorrow. As I was leaving after the purchase, I heard Ethan calling my name. Then I saw Ethan walking briskly towards me to greet me. Eleanor, I didn't expect to run into you here. He glanced up at the shop sign, so this is where you like eating now. The forced familiarity after estrangement felt uncomfortable. I spoke up, shattering the illusion of peace Ethan was desperately trying to maintain. Ethan, don't do this. You're coming up to greet me like this. Makes me far more uncomfortable than if you just ignored me. He remained silent, and the atmosphere instantly froze over again. Yet just as I stood to leave, he grabbed my hand. I told him to let go, but he still held on tightly. He looked anxious, his voice flustered. Eleanor, let us talk now, or I don't know when I'll see you again. There was a time when he pushed me away with money. As a result, I drifted further away, and he began complaining about how hard it was to find me. We didn't even bother finding a cafe to sit in, just stood under a big tree by the roadside to talk. Ethan no longer insisted on restoring our relationship in a short time. He couldn't let go of this relationship, so he increased his stakes to maintain this marriage that was only nominal. Fearing my refusal, he repeatedly assured me, I'll try to appear less often before you. I didn't care whether his words were true or not, since I would be leaving for another city tomorrow anyway. In an instant, the relationship returned to its most comfortable state for me. I lived a single life with Ethan, transferring more money to me punctually every month. When I nodded in agreement, I saw Ethan exhale a long sigh of relief. At 20, during my second month settling here, my dance studio had been successfully open for a week. During a break from dance practice, a young student came over and touched the hem of my dress, then couldn't he stop showering me with compliments. Teacher Ellie's dress is so pretty. Just then I received a message from a friend. Ethan seems obsessed lately, always lingering around that deli shop. Probably fell for a woman with a sweet tooth. Suddenly I remembered how Ethan had stared intently at the shop sign that day and carefully pronounced its name aloud. I knew his promise to minimize appearing before me was a lie from the start. Yet he still made some effort to slowly mend the cracks between us. For these 2 months, Ethan's money has arrived punctually. He attempted to probe my current situation through any means. Anyway, we're now separated by mountains and rivers. Whatever he does remains unseen by me. As for the matter of reconciliation, there wasn't the slightest chance, no matter what he did. 2 years later, on the payment date, Ethan failed to transfer the money on time. I called Ethan after midnight, but no one answered. Then I couldn't help but start wildly imagining things again. The thought of Ethan's death began to dance wildly in my mind again. I tentatively messaged a friend asking about Ethan's whereabouts. A reply came quickly assuring me nothing was wrong and promising to urge Ethan to transfer the money to me as soon as possible. The payment finally arrived the next day. Then I shook my head and sighed, wishing Ethan dead. With sheer willpower proved utterly useless. One day, half a month later, I received a package sent by a friend. When I opened it, I discovered it was the divorce agreement Ethan had filled out. On such an abrupt day, without me doing anything, Ethan's agreement to divorce was truly unexpected. So I called my friend asking him, in an excited tone, why did Ethan suddenly have a change of heart? His tone was flat, devoid of any emotion. Yet, he delivered a bombshell to me. Eleanor, Ethan is dead. I wanted to ask what had happened, but perhaps because I waited too long, what blurted out instead was really that's wonderful news. Ethan's illness had begun a year ago with recurring fevers. By the time it was diagnosed, it was already an incurable disease. Ethan took it quite well, but specifically instructed everyone not to tell me. That's when I found out Ethan had fallen into a coma the first time he failed to make the payment on time. When they received my call demanding payment, they were waiting outside the operating room. I rummaged through his pockets to find his phone, then asked him. A friend told me over the phone that Ethan had made a will, leaving all his assets to me. Just as I had anticipated, after Ethan's death, I seized all his assets. Now I've finally gotten what I wanted. A young student at the dance studio excitedly calls out to me. Teacher Ellie, look quickly, isn't this dress pretty? I turned to look and discover she had a custom-made dress identical to mine. I nodded with a smile. So beautiful, it's dazzling. Her mother walked over and lightly tapped her little head. Didn't I tell you, sweetheart, it's Teacher Eleanor. The little student insisted on calling me Teacher Ollie, so her mother looked at me with a cheerful smile. Then let us wish our teacher Eleanor to forever bring light, just as her name suggests. After days of gloomy weather, the skies suddenly cleared. Everything was getting better, just like that. The end.